When I work with high school athletes and we start getting into brass tacks about the process and the proven approach that we're going to take when reaching out to college coaches, and through some of the things we do, they start to realize, wow, this is real. We're actually doing this. I'd like to discuss what I know to be the number one fear or number one emotion that I clearly pick up on in those moments. And knowing what I know, how I go about dissuading that and really helping them keep their eye on the ball in terms of what it is that we're actually trying to do here. But first, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Blake Starkey. I'm a former 20-year NCAA Division I head coach. I coached at 2 different major universities in 2 different Power 5 conferences. In my time coaching, I have personally recruited and signed more high school athletes to full athletic scholarships than I could possibly count. I'm a creator of the Your Athletic Scholarship Program, which is one of the nation's top programs for helping high school athletes and their families with the athletic recruiting process. And this is just something that I'm very passionate about and that I know on a really, really deep level. And I take a lot of joy in taking something that I did professionally for 20 years and I understand on a really deep level, and kind of being able to help some kids and families with what can be a very nervous time in their lives. And if you're a high school athlete or their parents and you can relate with some of this about the dreaded athletic recruiting process, if some of this hits home with you, I hope that when you understand the crystal clear points that I make, that you, like families that I work with, will be a little bit calmer in terms of what's in front of you and what it is that you're trying to do. But first, before we get too deep into this video, I do want to tell you about a completely free resource that I have that I want to give to you. It is an amazing walkthrough. What it does is it walks high school athletes from their freshman year all the way through their senior year in terms of everything that they need to be doing. So it takes into account all the academic stuff, athletic stuff, NCAA stuff. It is a great tool, and trust me, it's something that you want. But I'll tell you at the end how you get your hands on that. So what is this number one thing that I notice coming from high school athletes during this time? Well, it's nerves. It's self-doubt. They get nervous. And it makes sense if you think about it. Anybody who's worked their salt, who's worked with the high school age group, knows that there are times where these kids can be incredibly confident and other times where they're not so confident. And for the first time in a very long time, this is kind of a nervous time. I mean, we are very realistically thinking about leaving our home, leaving a lot of our friends, leaving a town that we've known on a really deep level and venturing out into the unknown. Makes sense that it's a nervous time. So how do I go about calming down nervous parents and these young athletes? Well, very important for them to understand exactly where they are right now in the process and what our ultimate goals are, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. We're not, choosing where we're going to go to college today. We're not choosing where we're going to play. What we're doing right now is making them understand that they're about to follow a very proven plan and a very proven process. And the whole goal of that plan is to create opportunities, options. And then at a later date, which is often years or months down the road, if we're successful in creating opportunities and options, at that point, they'll sit down with their parents, possibly at the kitchen table, and look through those opportunities and options, and then we'll make those important decisions. But that's not what we're doing today. Today, we're making them understand, hey, here's all the stuff that we're about to do, and here's why we're doing it, because we're trying to come up with opportunities and options. And once they understand that, it never fails. They tend to breathe a little bit easier. Another thing I like to do to calm down nervous athletes and their parents is use numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And when we do this, the first number that I like to start with is the number 1. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, Blake, how could the number 1 possibly have anything to do with this? Well, just stay with me here for a second. There's one you. You are only going to be able to go to one university. And what is it that we're trying to do here? We're trying to create options and opportunities. We've got a plan and we've got a process that we're going to go through to do that. And let's say that we are successful and we're able to create 16 opportunities, 16 options, 16 colleges, 16 coaches that want you to come and play for them. Well, once we've done that, you're going to sit down, you're going to look at all your options and all your opportunities, and you're going to pick the one that's the absolute best fit for you. And you're probably going to tell that school, yes, I'm going to come and play for you. And you're going to have to tell the other 15 schools, no. But the important point here is we accomplished our goal. We were able to successfully to create options and opportunities simply by following a proven plan and a proven process. And the next thing I do is I go a little more in depth on the numbers. Like I said, I'm a numbers guy, and I think when we start doing this, this is something that, really gives a lot of power to that whole concept of the number one. Now, I was a college tennis coach, so if you're okay with it, I'm going to use my sport of tennis for this example, but do understand that this will work no matter what sports you play. And I've worked with football players, basketball players, baseball players, gymnasts, swimmers, obviously tennis players, golf. I feel like I've worked with all of them. And the main thing that you need to understand is you need to understand how many colleges out there are offering your particular sport. You can get that information at the NCAA. But it's been a while since I've checked, so also it's possible that my numbers are a little bit off in terms of the number of sports. But last time I checked, there were 220 men's NCAA Division I teams, and so there were 220 colleges that were offering men's tennis, and there were 315 Division I women's teams out there, which means you had 315 colleges, universities that were offering the sport of women's tennis. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to use women's tennis for this example. So women's tennis is what's called a head count sport, which means you have 8 full scholarships. So just for this example, we're going to assume that every college out there is offering 8 full scholarships for their women's tennis team. So if we have 315 Division I women's tennis teams, and all of those schools are offering 8 full scholarships, that would be 315 times 8. That is going to give us a number of 2,520 scholarships that are available in the sport of women's tennis. Now, does that mean that there are 2,520 scholarships available for your year? Absolutely not. You may be a senior, and next year you might be a freshman in college somewhere, but somewhere right now while you're a senior, there's some girl who is a sophomore at her college, and her scholarship will be renewed the following year. And so you can't have her scholarship. And so what I like to do is I like to just, let's just use a number. You got 8 scholarships. Let's assume every team out there is going to lose 2 of their players. And there's a lot of reasons that scholarships roll over. The most normal one is attrition. Somebody graduates and they go off into the world to do their thing. And so that coach during that kid's senior year, they're out there recruiting, and then the next year they're going to bring in a new player on that scholarship. But other reasons that scholarships roll over, sometimes you have kids who will just give their scholarship up. Maybe they played for 2 years, and I don't know, it's happened to me once. There was a kid, she was pre-med, and she really needed to focus academically, and so she gave up her scholarship. You also sometimes have kids that transfer. They go to another college, or you may have somebody that's unfortunate, but let's say a coach kicks a kid off a team. But regardless of what the reason is, let's assume that every school out there is going to roll over 25% of their team. So if we take 2,520 and we multiply that times 25%, that's going to give us 630 scholarships. Now, does that mean that there are, well, okay, so here's the deal. Tennis, unlike football and unlike a lot of other sports, is there's definitely an international influence in that sport. And so I think it's actually a safe number. Let's look at that 630 scholarships that are available, and let's just assume that about half of those are going to go to international athletes. And so that would leave us with a number of 315 scholarships that are left. Now, a tournament that I used to recruit at all the time is I would go to the national clay courts in Memphis, and I would go to the national hard courts in California. And the draw size right now in that tournament is 224. So we've broken it down. We've got 315 scholarships that are available. And let's assume that every single player in the national hard courts or the national clay courts with a draw size of 224, let's assume that every single one of those kids is going to accept a scholarship and go play somewhere. Okay, so we got 315 scholarships. After all the international kids get some spots, we got 315 scholarships that are left, minus the 224 kids that are in that draw. And that is going to leave us with 79 available scholarships. Actually, the number is higher than that because I'll tell you, every single year at the clay courts or at the nationals or whatever, you have a lot of players who they're at the nationals, but they have no intention of playing their sport at the college level. Maybe they just want to be a normal student. Maybe this is as much as they were going to play their sport, and then when they went to college, they didn't want tennis. And so actually, even though you would have, you would say there were 79, the number is actually going to be a lot higher because you're going to have a lot of kids who they're not going to play. And so my point is, after the international kids have gotten their scholarships, and after if we assume every single kid, it doesn't happen that way, but let's assume every single kid is going to take a scholarship from the national hard courts, that is going to leave 79 available scholarships, which means you're going to have college coaches looking for players, not the players looking for college programs. And so, and here's the other thing that's a really, really beautiful part of this example that I'm giving you. I'm just talking about NCAA Division I. I'm not talking about NCAA Division II, NCAA Division III, the NAIA, or the junior colleges. Everything that just came out of my mouth, those are other divisions that each have hundreds of schools that offer opportunities. So now Division III doesn't offer true athletic scholarships, but yeah, Division II, NAIA, and the junior colleges, they absolutely offer scholarships. And so that number of available opportunities is actually much larger. And so again, there's one you. You're only going to go to one school. And as I just described simply through the math, there's a lot of opportunities. Now, another thing that also will give you something to feel good about, I know it for a fact, a lot of colleges have cut recruiting budgets. And so let's say you've got a coach who's at a really great school, but because their budget is so small, they can't afford to fly to California or fly to Memphis to go watch this national tournament. You think they're going to take that money out of their pocket? Probably not. And so there are other ways that coaches go about finding their players. And a lot of the strategies that I teach and a lot of stuff that I know works, it is totally aligned for that group of coaches where great school, they have scholarships available, but they just don't have the money to get to the tournaments. And so everything that I've just mentioned, I'm hoping kind of makes you go, never really quite thought about it that way. And so yeah, there is a lot of opportunity out there if you know where to look and you know how to look. And that is a lot of the stuff that we teach. Now, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I have this amazing walkthrough that I personally put together, and I want to give it to you totally for free. There's a link in the description at the bottom of this video. All you have to do is click that link and I will immediately send you this. And trust me, if this is a subject that you're interested in, you want this walkthrough. Look, I hope this discussion that we've just had has been something that you found beneficial. I've just found over the years, occasionally it's always sad, you deal with this one kid, it's like, well, they're good, and they're like, I'm just not good enough. It really helps to kind of take a numerical approach and kind of get some data so that you understand what you're working with. Because I've had a lot of kids who weren't going to do this, and they look up 4 years later and they've maybe played their sport and have gotten their college education completely paid for. Like really exciting, life-altering stuff. So look, I want to wish you the absolute best of luck with everything that you're doing. I want to wish you the best of luck with your sport. I want to wish you the best of luck with your academics and just with all of your goals. We'll be turning around with another just really quality discussion in this area on athletic recruiting soon, and hope to be talking to you soon. Take care.